More on this from Kathy Baughman McLeod, who is the director at the Adrienne Arsht Rockefeller Foundation Resilience Center at the Atlantic Council. She joins us in the studio. So Kathy, the reason I wanted to do this story tonight is because I feel like for the last couple of weeks, I've been reporting on a number of extreme weather events. You have French President Emmanuel Macron visiting a melting glacier in France. There's, talk all over DC about this just being an unseasonably warm winter, not a lot of snow. In fact, somebody was saying for the first time in maybe 3 decades, this may be a February where there's not snow. And then we have flooding in Mississippi. So how do we differentiate between whether these events are attributable to climate change or not?
A recent study told us that in the last 6 years, not one day has passed where climate change has not been a factor in our weather. And so when you think about all of these events, climate change exacerbates them. So it makes the world hotter and wetter or drier, and so that driver is there. And while there may not be a percentage that you can attribute to each of these disasters and these conditions, it's absolutely driving it and making things stronger and more impactful to communities and to people.
So even on a night like tonight, you step outside and you think, oh, it's pretty warm. It doesn't feel too bad. But it's almost a cause for concern because you think to yourself, it's winter. It should be snowing. It should be cold outside. So I guess when ordinary people are looking at extreme weather events around the world, what is the point of change where people say, I need to start changing my own behavior because we're already seeing in many instances that it's looking like it's too late to reverse course?
Well, we need to immediately stop emitting greenhouse gases. That's the start. However, so much of those emissions are baked in, and as you said, it's hot, it's getting hotter, it's warmer. Look at Australia and the heat and the drought that drives a fire so big that it's apocalyptic in nature. So we have to think about both getting rid of those greenhouse gases, but we also have to think about it's time to change the way that we live. It's time to think about what are the things that we can do for ourselves and in our communities. And there are things that we can do, and we need to adapt both physically and financially, and we need good policy that helps us just make better decisions about what we have, the reality of climate change, which we're living with every day.
Well, it's interesting to see that it takes a turtle getting a straw stuck up its nose going viral for people to say, you know what, we're banning straws. But it's got to be more than that. But I want to touch on one other thing quickly before we go, which is, we have a U.S. election around the corner. I'm hearing a lot of voters when they're looking at the Democratic presidential field, especially a lot of young voters, saying climate change is why we are voting for these candidates.
Pew Charitable Trust did a poll in January that showed that 52% of voters want the Trump administration and Congress to act on climate change. That is a very clear concern. And I think when you see these things in your daily life, even foods that you won't be able to get because of climate change, or more ticks or mosquito-borne illnesses, those are realities, and we know what to do about it. And so I think those voters are cognizant and saying, do it.
Absolutely. Well, Kathy, it's been great to have your expertise. Really appreciate you coming on, breaking that down.
Thanks for having me.
That.